Biden as this aimless guy who really only has electability going for him. He's kind of old, he's kind of folksy, but against Trump, who's brutal and vicious, like it's going to be interesting to see how those two candidates are able to play out on the debate stage, assuming Biden would win the nomination.
Yeah, I have to say that I do agree with everything you're saying, but I think there's actually more that like could be added onto that with the respect of black voters. You have like they're the biggest non-white group in the Democratic Party, obviously, and Joe Biden has a commanding lead over them as we're seeing tonight. But I think you can really make a case that you can try and eat into the black support, especially when we talked about what has worked in the past with talking about how Joe Biden has voted to and focused on cutting entitlements. Like that's a very, very interesting case to make because a lot of people do like their entitlements, and the biggest recipients of Social Security are African Americans. And you could talk about the fact he gave the eulogy from Strom Thurmond, defended working with the segregationists, wrote the crime bill. Although Sanders did vote for the crime bill, that may not be as effective. But the fact that you just play some of those comments back and really portray him as a guy who's just completely out of touch with black voters and has a ton of weaknesses against Trump, not like the very least of which being he called Super Tuesday Super Thursday like yesterday. That can be I think you'd really start to poke holes on it, but I kind of worry about this. Bernie Sanders not really going the full extra mile in doing so, not necessarily being a vicious bully like Trump is, but starting to like really draw contrast and attack the record, not necessarily the character, but the record of Joe Biden. I think he's going to start to have to really do that because this is a two-person race and start to do it early and often.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I worry about him just kind of being a little bit too nice. Do you, James? Well, do you gonna share that concern or?
Yeah, well, I don't think he wants to tear Biden down because I think he does need to build this, base of Sanders's voters have been accused of being nasty. Like there's a reputation that his base holds. And I don't think he wants to go after Biden really hard and tear apart his legacy because that doesn't look good to the voters he's trying to, former Biden voters, Buttigieg voters, people who aren't in love with Sanders, watching him rip apart the Democratic Party like that, it's going to make them uneasy. I'm afraid that if he could either be too nice, he could not go after Biden, and these voters would see Biden as a stronger candidate than he is, or he could go too hard after Biden and risk alienating moderate voters by being too much of an ideologue or fracturing the party too. I mean, he's not a Democrat. He wasn't a Democrat in Congress. He only joined the Democratic Party because he could caucus with them. And people aren't really thinking about it now, but when they see him tear down a national party figure, like it really brings out that divide between him and the establishment that is going to be the base for these moderate voters.
But I feel like if you're trying to win an election, like I think people understand, like you got to draw the contrast, you got to just kind of show how you're different than the person that you're running against. And really, at least what we know now is it's starting to look like a two-person race.
Definitely.
And the question is, can the tide be turned soon enough? James Stanley, do you think if things don't go the way the Sanders campaign wants on Super Tuesday, do you think there still is enough time to turn the tide in delegate results so that Bernie Sanders comes into the convention at the very least with a plurality of delegates?
Yeah, I would argue that there definitely is a shot because, we got a lot more states to go. I mean, after Super Tuesday, we still got Oregon, Washington. These are two states that I could definitely argue are going to be easy wins for Sanders. I mean, I don't know how many delegates they exactly are, but then you got more of the Midwestern belt states that could easily, I would argue, be good battlegrounds for Sanders. And those include Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and possibly even I was reading about actually in Connecticut, out of anywhere, Bernie was actually doing quite well against Bloomberg and Biden, because Bloomberg is actually taking quite a lot of support from Biden in the northeast states of New York and Connecticut right now, especially New York, actually. But I do think that there is a path forward for Sanders. If Biden does well tonight, there's a path forward for him. But the fact of the matter is, I think that we are going to be looking at either a brokered convention, which I think is most likely going to happen, to be quite honest. It really depends, honestly, on if Warren drops out. I think that is really, honestly, what it 100% depends on. Well, at least not 100%, maybe 80% depends on, because if Warren still is doing third place and Bloomberg is still doing, also if Bloomberg is still in the race as well, then I think that we could also see something a little bit interesting occur in the sense of if both of them are in. Now, if only one of them drops out, being Warren drops out, I think that we would have a clear choice between one of the two candidates, being Biden and Sanders. And, I don't really know who would win at that point. It depends on who and how, we do tonight here with the candidates. It seems like Biden's doing pretty good tonight so far. But, again, the night's not over. Many of the states still haven't even put in 50% of the votes, so we can't really be making any calls yet for tonight. But I still think that after tonight, if Bernie doesn't do well, there definitely is a path forward for Bernie without a doubt.
Yeah,
he just has to put his mind to it. That's the only thing I would say for Bernie. He has to put his mind to it. He has to campaign like the sunshine won't come out tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Bernie, like the one thing that's always been true for Bernie is that he always has a very solid core base of support, and even in the worst times of the campaign, they've always been there for him and are really willing to come out, organize, support him at the rallies and stuff like that. So. Yeah, but the question is, can he win over people like James Well, who were not with him at the start, and have kind of like drifted over to him because of maybe the progressive policies and stuff like that. So, like James, if like you were not like the right away drawn to Sanders, right? Like, what do you think Sanders can do to bring people more like you over to him?
I think he needs to be pragmatic and open to the thing that the reason that I found Buttigieg specifically to be so appealing at the beginning is because he was so reasonable. He wasn't entrenched super hard into any specific ideology, and that was attractive to me because I saw him as having a basic sense of morality and a high sense of rationality, so he could take whatever problem was thrown at him and look at it from multiple different perspectives instead of one hard set idea. So when it came to Medicare, the idea of Medicare for all is attractive, definitely, because it's nationalized health. It's like the goal. But Buttigieg wanted that. That was what he wanted, but his implementation plan was just more pragmatic. It was Medicare for all who want it, but once consumers realize that the government option is far better than the private options, which it'll be far more competitive, then eventually private health insurance companies are going to become extinct by the ways of the market instead of government forcing everyone off their plan. And to me and to a lot of people that are moderates, I wouldn't describe myself as a moderate, but I wouldn't describe myself as the hardest left person out there. So left of center, but right of left, if that's how I could describe. But to that group of people who was kind of on the border between progressive and left centrist,
who were kind of like playing with Bernie Sanders, almost like thinking.
Yeah, I was definitely. Yeah, I had considered him and I had rooted for him in the past because progressivism is the ideal situation, I believe. But I just saw Buttigieg as more pragmatic, and I think if Sanders could essentially make it himself more attractive, make himself seem less as if he is narrow-minded and totally entrenched in one ideology. If he's open to negotiation and to working on his policies, like AOC, one of the things she talked about is Medicare for all, and that she would be satisfied with a public option, and Bernie Sanders went against that, which just makes him look like he's entrenched beyond reasonable doubt within one ideology, which I think if you're trying to appeal to moderate candidates, or to moderate voters, which he has to make himself look open to other ideas.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting because, I think it could be very appealing to really counteract the idea of Fox News and other people and people in the Democratic Party coming out and saying that, hey, Bernie Sanders is a radical socialist with the likes of like Stalin and Lenin and Mao and all that stuff. It's like the crazy things that they say. It's like that narrative would be very interesting if it comes out with him coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm willing to compromise. Like I'm here to get the best, the closest possible thing that we can do to my ideal scenario done." And if he comes out and says that, I think it actually could be very, very helpful. So, yeah, that I definitely do agree with what you're seeing there. Here's according to NBC News' exit polling. According to NBC News' exit polling, for every Super Tuesday state, 13% of voters are between 18 to 29. So that is really, really telling. For at least for every Super Tuesday state that is polls have closed so far. That's what we are seeing right now. So yeah, it's really, really tough to get them to come out and vote. And I don't know if this is really reflective for the entirety of the country, or for that matter, the entirety of the Super Tuesday states. But what are your guys' reaction to this? Let's start with James Stanley.
My reaction to what exactly with the turnout again? With the younger voters?
Yeah, 18 to 29 voters make up 13% of the people that have voted so far, at least. As of 3 hours ago. So that maybe it's probably more towards like North Carolina, some of the states that were first called for Biden. But anyway.
I actually don't think it's that bad, to be honest with you. I think it's actually pretty good. It seems like people are energized and ready to vote in our elections, especially since the younger voters typically don't actually go out and vote in mass numbers.
But still, it is only 13%, though. It's a very short margin.
But it is actually not as bad as it typically could be during a primary. I mean, we did see bigger numbers in 2018, obviously, in many states.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did see quite bigger numbers. But I think 13% tonight, I think that it shows that there were definitely some people who felt as if they weren't energized enough for a candidate, or they didn't feel like the candidate really listened, or were not really listened to them, but they didn't feel as if the candidate was really with them, it seems like, this time around, comparing it to 2018, where there were a lot more statewide elections than there were this time around. But I actually am a little bit shocked. 13%, that's actually a little bit low, especially since we have Bernie Sanders in the race. I would have imagined that might have been more towards 18 to 20%, especially in these states like Virginia and North Carolina, which do have quite a lot of college towns around the entire state, really. But 13% seems quite low, especially since this isn't really a bad part of the year for a primary.
Yeah, so, 13% definitely is very, very low. This is according to NBC News as of 3 hours ago. So this is the 7 p.m. poll closing states. All right, so let's just give you a quick update of the way things are standing right now. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Joe Biden well ahead in Oklahoma, and a little bit closer, up 8 points in Arkansas. Bernie Sanders pulling away around 6 points up in Texas. So hopefully he stands to pull away a little bit there. Right now in Minnesota, right now in Maine, it is 34.1 to 33.8 Biden on top, with 18% reporting. Massachusetts, 33 to 26 with 13% reporting.
Whoa.
Joe Biden is up. In Minnesota, 35.6 to 32.1. Biden's up as well. Utah is about to close, and California closes it at 11. So that's pretty much the way things stand right now. So that's a brief overlook of the way things are at this point. So Texas, things are not looking very good for. I think really the interesting thing is in Massachusetts, Biden up 13. What is your James? What's your reaction to that? Seeing that coming as of now.
I'm sorry. Could you just repeat that?
Reaction.
13% youth turnout.
Oh no, the Massachusetts so far. Or you could also talk about the youth turnout too if you want, because that's a
okay. I'll start with Massachusetts then. I think it's just another example of Elizabeth Warren splitting the vote. I mean, it is her home state, so it's not to be unexpected that she would do better here than she is in doing the other state. She is doing in the other states, but it just looks like she's so much more of a spoiler than Bloomberg is. And Massachusetts could have been a victory for Sanders. Maine also